I'm not feeling too of an uneasiness for the 2 minute video about illustration and toy making, but we can upload that if you ever know what I'm talking about. But I'm just gonna actually record one extra 6 minute video about the the tools you use for claymation that aren't necessarily related to clay in the first place, and combining claymation props with other materials. So Aardman and Leica, at least I particularly Leica, have combined their props with certain polyester materials and plastics and metals and woodwork stuff that makes their props legitimately easier to animate with, and even in certain situations that makes it easier to organize for certain parts of the film. That's fair game. That's not fake claymation. That's actually them making sure that they know what they're doing, and they've experienced this through their own advancement of their learning techniques. So they had to start somewhere, and that is how they started. They actually even Aardman using the fur coats for some of the characters with actual hairs on them, and then just going for every other like design technique. Even when they move the camera over and over with mechanical robots and redstone features in their tech, that is actually good techniques. Any technique is a technique in my opinion, even if it's too creative to imagine. But that's because the Drake exists. So, but here's the thing with the materials that are not related to claymation. There was a Reddit post that made sense to me in a way that I was in line to see it. I was more fascinated by this than upset. But here's the post was like, these are 5 things. What are 5 things you learn as an animator that you can teach anyone else? Well, the first thing is get this paintbrush and paint the wood. I'm like, okay. Get this oil pastel and attach it to your charcoal. Okay. Yet you're. This is just me over exaggerating, but there was just all these techniques that had nothing to do with touching clay and cameras and editing and filming. It was like and sculpting. It was like all these techniques that made him a better animator for claymation, but it was still like okay. How come none of this has anything to do with what I've been experiencing? It's because he's on that much higher of a level of advancement and expertise. He's actually a true artist in that legitimate sense, and not even a perceptual bias artist, but like more like he's doing his own thing so well that he's a commission animator in his own image. He's not just focused on the clay or the technology by a certain cliche. It's because he's doing it in a way that makes sense to him. And he probably knows that that's what the point is that claymation isn't just clay and camera. It's what you do to achieve those goals, even if they're still illusions by then. Because one of the biggest things you do as a media producer is you learn the ability to be an elusive person with your abilities. And so that, like, even with machinimas, you make illusions with props and designs and mechanics. But the thing is, when you combine these material techniques for claymation and these material designs for props and claymation, what you want to do is ask yourself, what is real claymation? Is it truly the modern clay in the DSLR webcam or the software I have for claymation in the YouTube channel I have that makes it a claymation? Or is it the techniques that I choose to make for myself work in favor of the art that I want to choose to make, whether it has real clay and cameras in there or not? And that is probably a deep enough question for any animator to ask themselves. Anyone in 2D or 3D or sans, paper cut, all the like, what makes real animation art? Is it the application of animation and science, technology, engineering, mathematics, like it was supposed to be first and foremost? Bias perception, or does it have a creative edge to it, even if it had nothing to do with all the anime and manga aspects and video games and cartoon shows and all the things that people keep throwing out there for art and animation as a genre, and they still say that it's a genre, not a no, they say that it's a medium, not a genre, but they still make it look like it's only for cartoons and anime and video games. It's like that's my big hot take for that, but I'll get into that later. Uh, no, sincerely, for claymation's sake and stop motion, it is what you make of it. And the thing is that when they use these material techniques that look a little foreign and they know that they're doing it in a way that not many people would expect at first, don't be too shunned by that. Don't be too discouraged by that. Don't be like, oh man, how come I never thought of that? You can think of your own stuff that I would know about for claymation. I'm being very specific when I say this, but you could even be the kind of person who creates their own stop motion software. You could design your own clay, like nucleus. You could actually not, you don't have to even invent anything. You could just be so creative. You combine materials and technologies together in a way that unimaginably to myself, you know how to make it in the form of a stop motion animation that no one you could even redefine what the stop motion genre even means, or the stop motion medium, what it means to make stills for images for software. You could combine the timing of ones and twos in certain patterns and shapes and fractions and multimedials in a way you can mathematic the crap out of that without even having to touch software. It's crazy. Like, unimaginably speaking, material possessions and innovations to the craft of claymation come hand in hand from the design of this since the 1940s and 30s. Over the many years that claymation existed, it is not impossible to redefine the wheel just because you want to be creative, because that's the whole point of it being creative. It's claymation.